You're with Julian on the Brown Note and a review of The Gorge, which I think is a Netflixy film. Very interesting director, Scott Derrickson, who's had many ups and downs over quite a prolific career, which was born at the start of the century with Urban Legends The Final Cut, which was probably rubbish, but as a writer, and then Hellraiser Inferno, which was probably rubbish, I don't know. The Day the Earth Stood Still, I think, was a Keanu Reeves film, which was not well received. And then did Sinister, which is a phenomenal horror film and one of the most anxiety-inducing horror films starring Ethan Hawke, which is fantastic. Deliver Us from Evil, then moves up to Doctor Strange for some bizarre reason. He didn't do the sequel he should have done, because the sequel to that was terrible. And now we get The Gorge, which is... The best thing about this film is its premise and setup, and I'm surprised it hasn't been made into a computer game, or wasn't a computer game to start with. We get Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy in a virtual two-hander here. There's not many people in the film at all. We get Sigourney Weaver show up, but really the entire film is those two. Very interesting premise. They're both sort of snipers that are on the edges of shady government organisations, the military, the intelligence services, but mainly sort of outcasts in this community that are picked up to do terrible jobs. That they're expendable. And he gets pulled in by Sigourney Weaver and said, you know, you're not doing well, we've got this amazing job and we want you to do it. And he gets dropped off in the middle of a beautiful wilderness, which looks Norwegian. I think it is Norwegian, actually. And finds out that he's going to spend a year in this tower. And he relieves the previous occupant of the tower, who's one of the only other actors in the film, and has this huge tower overlooking a gorge, and is basically told that this mist-engulfed gorge that seems to go on to the depths of hell, he's there to ensure that what's in the gorge doesn't get out. And there's quite a few, whether it's a sci-fi film or a horror film, there's this massive gorge and it's ringed with all of these sort of remote control trips and machine guns and mines to stop these things coming out, which look like zombies at the start of the film. You sort of see a bit of them. The other part of it is that Anya Taylor-Joy is the same as him, but from the Russian side. And she's like Lithuanian or something. And she is also in the same boat as he is, dropped off at this post, relieves the previous occupant, and has the tower opposite him. And they gradually communicate from, you know, half a mile away, holding up signs and looking through their sniper scopes and talking to each other and bonding and forming a relationship. Eventually they do go into the gorge, and I won't spoil what happens, but I have to say the gorge itself and what goes on down there I found fascinating. I thought the if anything, like the first half of the film is basically them getting together on a long distance relationship across the gorge and eventually becoming, you know, lovers. And the next half of the film feels compressed because it shoves in both the what actually is in the gorge, which is, I thought, really interesting. It reminded me a bit of the movie Annihilation, which was unexpected, and it looks incredible as well down there. And then we also get what happens after. I thought there was a little bit of naivety from the characters in the fact that, you know, we're told that what's in the gorge, it's a joint Russian-American top-secret thing that even presidents don't know about. The likelihood of them letting you go at the end of that year, I would imagine, is quite small. And you would have probably guessed that as well. The biggest problem with this film is the tonality changes so often, and it's doesn't stick in one place, and it's quite jarring. I found some of the romancing a bit much. A little bit too trite, but then again, it does seem a little bit sweet at the same time, and like Miles Teller and Anya Taylor-Joy are very big names, and they're perfectly good in what they're asked to do. I don't know if I sort of fully bought the fact that they would hook up like they did, but you've got a time frame of a year, and they're alone, and they're both loners as well, so possibly. But some of it is a bit over egged, and I was a bit cringy, and quite glad when things got a bit more action oriented. The look of the gorge itself, once they get into it, is actually quite phenomenal. And a little bit too brief and a little bit too pat. There's a lot of elements in this film that are just a little bit too much. The way that, for instance, which goes pretty much throughout the whole film, they've got all of these sort of like automated guns stopping these things that will destroy the world if they get out, but not where the two towers are, like either side of the gorge. That's only a plot device so that they can get down and up. It's like there's no reason for that not to be automated as well. Why would you have people that are only checking in every 30 days guarding it? Every 30 days? So things could come up there and escape and be on the run for 30 days. That makes no sense whatsoever. So there's a lot of stuff that seems like plot armor here, or plot devices to facilitate the story, which could have been done a lot better. And it's very tonally uneven as well, which is like it jarringly jumps between the different worlds it's in. But I think it's worth watching. I think it looked beautiful, like the towers themselves and that whole gorge and wherever it's shot. That whole landscape is pretty breathtaking. And once they get down into the gorge itself, very, very interesting, very computer gamey. But I'm again surprised it didn't turn it into a computer game. It would have been quite a good one. But there's a lot that's very sort of pat, and things happen that are very useful to the characters to progress the story, which are a little bit incredulous. But overall, it's worth a once through. I'd say because of the unevenness and the fact that I found some of the romancing a little bit on the nose, to be honest. Great, the lead pair are fine, but it was a little bit too pat and a little bit too on the nose at times. So I'm going to give The Gorge a 6.5 out of 10, and